A very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us here on the network service of the NTA. I am Claire Dilabo Abdurazak, and this is the news at 10.
Indeed, Claire, and I'm Abdul Malik. It's good to have you join us on the news. First, the headlines.
This government respects and will continue to respect all the democratic rights and civil liberties of the people, but it will not allow anybody or groups to disrupt the peace of our nation.
Federal government directs security agencies to halt all acts of lawlessness and by whatever means necessary.
It is not Mr. President's desire to see any unwanted loss of lives, and he is determined to ensure that things do not cascade into an unpleasant situation.
Eminent Nigerians continue to sue for peace after weeks of protest against police brutality turns chaotic.
Plus, NCDC confirms 138 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria.
Hello and welcome to the program. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has formally appealed to the end-SARS protesters in parts of the country to resist the temptation of being used by subversive elements to cause chaos with the aim of truncating Nigeria's democracy.
In a nationwide broadcast, the president made a case for the youth to discontinue the street protest and constructively engage government in finding solutions and take advantage of the various well-thought-out initiatives designed to make their lives better and more meaningful. State House correspondent Damusambo has the details.
The choice to demonstrate peacefully is a fundamental right of citizens.
This right to protest, President Muhammadu Buhari, however, emphasized, also imposes on the demonstrators the responsibility to respect the rights of other citizens and the necessity to operate within the law. As a democratic government, he said, the federal government listened to and carefully evaluated the 5 points demand of the protesters, as a result of which SARS was immediately scrapped and measures put in place towards addressing the other demands.
The promptness with which we have acted seemed to have been misconstrued as a sign of weakness and twisted by some for their selfish, unpatriotic interests. The result of this is clear to all observers. Human lives have been lost, acts of sexual violence have been reported, 2 major correctional facilities were attacked and convicts freed, public and private properties completely destroyed or vandalized, the sanctity of the palace of a peacemaker, the Oba of Lagos, has been violated.
President Buhari described as painful that these acts of lawlessness were executed in the name of end-SARS protests, saying there's no way whatsoever to connect these bad acts to legitimate expression of grievance of the nation's youth.
The spreading of deliberate falsehood and misinformation through the social media in particular, that this government is oblivious to the pains and plight of the citizens is a ploy to mislead the unwary within and outside Nigeria into unfair judgment and disruptive behavior. On the contrary, both our deeds and words have shown how committed this administration has been to the well-being and welfare of citizens even with the steadily dwindling revenues and the added responsibilities and restrictions due to the coronavirus pandemic. No Nigerian government in the past has methodically and seriously approached poverty alleviation like we have done.
While reaffirming federal government's commitment to preserving the unity of the country, the president urged the youth to take the path of honor by ending the street protests, as well as resisting attempts by subversive elements to destabilize the country and truncate democracy.
For you to do otherwise will amount to undermining national security and the law and order situation. Under no circumstances will this be tolerated. This government respects and will continue to respect all the democratic rights and civil liberties of the people, but it will not allow anybody or groups to disrupt the peace of our nation. And I call on all Nigerians to go about their normal businesses.
President Buhari, who enjoined security agencies to protect lives and property of all law-abiding citizens, paid tribute to the police personnel who lost their lives in the line of duty. He also used the opportunity to thank members of the international community for their concern about the ongoing developments in Nigeria, saying, however, that they should seek to know all the facts available before either taking a position, rushing to judgment, or making hasty pronouncements. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the nation's security and intelligence agencies to do whatever is necessary within the limits of the law towards bringing to a halt the acts of lawlessness that have accompanied the NSAS protest in parts of the country, which he described as intolerable. The president gave the directive at an extraordinary meeting of the National Security Council, as explained by National Security Advisor Babagana Mungunu.
It appears now that the riots are taking a different dimension, an unwanted dimension. And Mr. President is very, very concerned about this development and does not want a situation in which everything breaks down and results in anarchy, in lawlessness, and people taking the law into their own hands. So far, the government has been able to concede to the demands of the protesters. Then it also is logical for the protesters, for those that are aggrieved also, to take a step back, take stock of their activities and come to a meeting point with government and its agencies. It is not Mr. President's desire to see any unwanted loss of lives, and he is determined to ensure that things do not cascade into an unpleasant situation. Mr. President has directed that government should do whatever is necessary within the confines of legitimacy, within the confines of legality, in order to bring about an agreeable resolution to this crisis. It is extremely important for the youth to understand that if the atmosphere is not conducive for dialogue and for understanding, we can't have any peaceful resolution. The security agencies have been asked to apply as much restraint as possible, but then again, the youth should also understand that sometimes pushing their luck might also result in unwanted issues. So it is very, very important for everyone to take stock of what has already happened and not give a dark impression of this country to the international community.
That was the National Security Advisor speaking. Meanwhile, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mohammed Musa Bello, has advised critical players to form a united front geared towards protecting lives and property of residents.
Now, the minister gave the advice during an emergency security meeting with the heads of security agencies and FCT area council chairman, as well as traditional and religious leaders in Abuja, the nation's capital. Now, Shuaibu Noze Yakubu report.
This stakeholders meeting is to review the unfortunate incidences that occurred in the territory with a view to getting first-hand briefings from the relevant officials. FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello, while commiserating with all those that were affected by the sad incidents, assures that the administration will provide assistance to those affected. He also disclosed that the administration will establish a committee where people will report their grievances to, with a view to ensuring amicable resolutions on issues before they get out of hand, appealing to the residents to continue to live in peace and harmony.
I wish to appeal once more to all residents of the FCT to live in harmony and peace. The FCT, as you all know, is our area and city. Abuja particularly is our city of unity, and the FCT was created as a means of unifying all of us in Nigeria. And we are all here living peacefully as brothers and sisters. So we should not, under any guise, allow those who want to disrupt our peace and unity to get in. And as an administration, we will, based on some of the committees that will work immediately, determine the extent of damage and then see what recourse can be done so that at least whatever losses or whatever pains people have been afflicted with can be mitigated somehow.
Youths have a right to protest, and within the context of law, and ensuring that they are law-abiding, so that the demands that they have put forward can be met. Okay. And we have discussed with the Minister of the FCT, and he has agreed that though the President has said he's looking into them, the FCT as an administration will look into these issues with a view to resolving them.
The emergency meeting also had in attendance stakeholders from the private sector and the leadership of the various market groups. Shuaibu Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
Now, Northern Governors Forum has called on Nigerian youths to be vigilant and advised those involved in wanton destruction of property in some part of the country to desist.
And Chairman of the Forum and Governor of Plateau State, Simon Bako Lalong, made the appeal while briefing newsmen at the end of emergency meeting in Kaduna. Mohammed Umar Ajengi reports.
The governors settling down to deliberate on recent developments in the country, particularly the NSAS protests that turned violent in some parts of the country. For about 6 hours, the governors met behind closed doors. They expressed worry and wonder why the NSAS protest persists despite the approval of their demands by the president. The governors therefore called for establishment of Judicial Commission of Inquiry to investigate the level of destruction and killings during the protests. The forum urged the federal government to look into the possibility of ending ASU strike, as they observe that most of the youths are idle, therefore vulnerable to be engaged in dubious acts.
Forum also notes the heavy presence of external influencers, both locally and internationally, and call on all citizens, particularly community leaders and youth groups, to be very vigilant and report the presence of such people to security agencies. The forum calls for comprehensive and robust reforms in the police force. She supports various federal government initiatives put in place by federal government and will ensure that they are fast-tracked and given more impetus by the 19 northern governors.
The 19 northern governors commended the resilience of the northern youths and leadership qualities shown by some prominent Nigerians by persuading the youths to embrace dialogue. In Kaduna, I am Muhammad Umar Ajingi, NTA News.
And state governments have come up with strategies to put to an end the unpatriotic activities of hoodlums.
Now, Elizabeth Omori has a compilation of visits by governors to affected places and the next step to end the mayhem.
The Edo State Governor, Godwin Obaseki, has given an ultimatum to inmates who fled from the medium security correctional centers to return to the prisons before Friday. Anwuli Okoli in Benin reports that the governor gave the ultimatum while inspecting the affected correctional facilities.
Government cannot sit down, fold its arms and allow a breakdown of law and order in our society.
In the same vein, Bright Ebocho reports that the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, has condemned the killing of security operatives in the state.
Curfew means that there is no movement of persons or group of persons, either in the day or at night, till further notice.
The Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa has also imposed a 48-hour curfew following the protest that led to the destruction of government property.
Starting 6 p.m. today, October 22, 2020.
Key players at a strategic engagement meeting at the instance of Governor Simon Lalong in Jos are calling on citizens at all levels to make practical efforts at entrenching the culture of peace and upholding the sanctity of human life.
There are legitimate avenues to ventilate grievances in a democracy.
Meanwhile, Osun and Cross River states have inaugurated judicial panels of inquiry on police brutality. Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State has also inaugurated a 10-man judicial panel of inquiry into the allegations of human rights violations against police officers, as well as operatives of the dissolved Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. Similarly, the Kwara State Governor, Abdurrahman Abdurazak, has also set up a panel of inquiry in line with the National Economic Council's directive to calm aggrieved persons, compensate victims, and reform policing system.
This effort is expected to build a more people-friendly policing system which respects the rights of every citizen and above all forms of abuses.
And the NSCDC has declared emergency on the nation's critical infrastructures and assets. The court directed all state commandants to immediately reinforce deployment of personnel to all strategic critical infrastructure and national assets located in their various states to forestall any act of vandalism, arson, and destruction of these critical assets by miscreants who may capitalize on the ongoing protests in most parts of the country to perpetrate their sinister motives. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
And you're watching the news at 10 here on the network service of the NTA. We have more news when we come back, and that includes...
NUJ condemns hijack of NSAS protest in Akwa Ibom as hoodlums set ablaze State Broadcasting Corporation and Ibom Specialist Hospital. Details shortly.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Welcome back. Now, eminent Nigerians continue to plead for peace after weeks of protest against police brutality turned chaotic. Now, the latest appeal is from retired Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, John Cardinal Onoikon. The cleric empathized with the youth, but wants them to now give peace a chance.
My children, you have cried. Many people have listened to you. You have to give people time to respond adequately. If you continue for too long, things can get out of hand. We sympathize with those who have lost their lives in this whole crisis. May their souls rest in peace. We also sympathize with those who have lost a lot of livelihood. Everybody will agree that no matter what your good intentions are, you cannot allow chaos to ensue. Because at the end of the day, if the country descends into chaos, everybody will suffer.
He also had a piece of advice for the government.
The government should admit that we are in a situation of emergency. They shouldn't think that we can continue to run things like we have done before. I would strongly suggest that they consider that we are in a state of emergency and invite others to join them, not just restrict themselves to their friends and their party members. Nigeria is full of very good people. Let them get involved. And let the government admit we have a serious problem on our hands. We need every Nigerian to cooperate.
And when the dust finally settles, Cardinal Onoykan advises that things no longer be business as usual.
Now, international bodies and faith groups have continued to sue for peace amidst the End SARS protests across the country, just as the youth groups say they are not off the street yet and ready for dialogue. Benny Adams has the details.
ECOWAS says it recognizes the right of citizens to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly and protest, but also stresses that those rights should be exercised in a non-violent manner, and also urges the Nigerian security operatives to exercise restraint in the handling of the protest and act professionally. Similarly, the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, has called for calm and comprehensive peaceful resolution to end the SARS protest.
It is a prayer that our country will rise from this terrible experience to be a better nation.
For the Supreme Council for Sharia in Nigeria, peace, safety of lives and property, as well as consideration of national interests should guide the utterances and actions of Nigerians at this critical period of national challenge.
Peace is priceless. People will come to know how important when it is lost. So there should be peace and stability.
The Institute of Public Relations urged the protesters to give government time to address their grievances and advised that inquiries into the killings and destruction of property be investigated.
Genuine protests and protesters must guard against being infiltrated by others with entirely different motives.
Another group, Think Nigeria First initiative, while commending government for heeding to the 545 demands of the youth, appeals to groups still on the streets to eschew violence and join the roundtable for dialogue.
We feel a sense of duty to appeal to our youth to remain calm, peace and law-abiding. The street protest has largely achieved its goal. It is a time to dialogue with government.
For the youth, realizing that no war ends in the battlefield but on the dialogue table, and amid local and international calls for peace, various youth groups under the umbrella of stakeholders of Nigerian youth say they are ready for dialogue.
On our part, we shall consult widely with our traditional institutions, religious leaders, and youth leaders to ensure that the youth are never again neglected.
The youth promise to use peaceful means as they continue to press home their demands of 5 for 5. In Abuja, Benny Adams, NTA News.
All right, let's take you now to Plateau State, where following resolutions reached at the high-level critical stakeholders meeting chaired by the Governor of Plateau State, Simon Bakula Long, which focuses on the need for stakeholders to immediately engage their communities across the state in a systematic peace dialogues aimed at de-escalating tensions. The state government has decided to relax the curfew earlier imposed in Jos North and South local government areas from 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening from Friday, October 23 2020 until further notice. Now, the decision was reached after painstaking deliberations with critical stakeholders and careful assessment of the security situation that led to the skirmishes in some parts of the affected local government areas last Tuesday. As a deliberate approach to prevent a repeat of the ugly incident where precious human lives and property were lost, the state government has for now also resolved to ban forthwith any processions and protests under whatever guise in order to safeguard the lives of all citizens in the state. Now, this is to enable the government to isolate and deal with those who are bent on disrupting the peace in that state. And by this notice, it urges all law-abiding citizens to go about their legitimate businesses without fear of molestation, as government has put all necessary measures in place to ensure maintenance of law and order across the state.
Now you're watching the news at 10, reaching you live on NTA. We'll now take a break. When we come back, more news.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms.
Start Times, Channel 101, Freak TV, Channel 703, GSTV, Channel 419, and Go TV, Channel 46.
For more information, log on to our website, www.nta.ng, or join us on our social media handles, Twitter at NTA News 24, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions, and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24, news and more news.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
the place that unites Nigeria.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online, or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.